The study of living world is called biology. Biology means nothing but the story of life on earth. The story of life. What is meant by life? There are several definitions to define life. The best definition is life can be defined as state of material having capacity to perform functional activities. The state of material having capacity to perform functional activities is called life. Here the state of material. What is state of material? Material means what here? It may be a complex thing or an individual organism. That means group of organisms or an individual organism. Here the word material is used to describe the individuals or group of individuals. See here, it is the state of material having capacity to perform functional activities. Now let us see what is life. That means what is living. How can we distinguish it from non-living things? That is very important. Now let us see the characters of some living things. Characters of some living things. I am writing here cellular organization. Second one, growth. Third one, reproduction. Fourth, metabolism. Sixth, interaction. These are the characters of living organisms. Out of these 6 characters, which character clearly defines life? Let us see one by one. Cellular organization. See, all the material on this earth, not only on this earth, collectively in the universe, all the material in the universe is made up of atoms and molecules. All the material included, that means living things and non-living things, is made up of atoms and molecules. Up to here, non-living things to molecule, non-living things end. Further organization can be seen in the living things. These molecules are aggregated. Cell. Many cells are grouped together to form tissues. Tissues are organized to form organs. Organs into organ systems. Organ systems. Organ systems into organisms. Organisms into populations. population forms communities, and several communities are existing in an ecosystem. Several ecosystems forms biosphere. This is broadly the organization of living systems on this earth. See, non-living things have the organization up to molecular level only. Living things organization continues beyond the molecular level. Cellular organization, this is the very fundamental, that whatever it may be, whatever may be the non-living thing it is, you cannot find cellular organization. You can find cellular organization in living things only. Many cells are grouped together to form tissues, and tissues to organs, organs into organ systems, organ systems into organisms, and several organisms collectively called population. Several populations forms communities, several communities forms one ecosystem, and several ecosystems forms the large biosphere on the planet Earth. This is about cellular organization. Yes, cellular organization is very fundamental and unique to the living things only. This is the defining property of living organisms. Defining property of living organisms. And next one, growth. See, growth. What is meant by growth? Increase, irreversible increase in the mass or size of the matter is called growth, whether it is living or non-living. In case of living things, see, it is internal. Growth is internal in case of living things. This is external in case of non-living things. Living things grow due to metabolic activities. That is called metabolism, that we are going to discuss under fourth topic. When anabolism exceeds catabolism, growth occurs. Anabolism is a synthetic process or constructive process, whereas catabolism is a destructive process. When anabolism exceeds catabolism, then you can see growth in the living organism. But growth can be found in non-living things also. For example, take a stone or mountain or a hill or sand dune. You take it, it increases in size by mass or weight. How it is, the external matter is accumulated on the surface of the non-living thing. By it also shows growth. So both living things and non-living things shows growth, whether it is irreversible or reversible. For example, in case of non-living things, it is irreversible. In case of living things, it is irreversible. It is reversible in case of non-living things. Anyway, whatever it may be, whether the living thing or non-living thing, both are showing growth or not. That is why this is not the defining property. This is not the defining property. Now, reproduction. See, reproduction means multiplication. Reproduction means multiplication. Reproduction in organisms. It can be carried out by both asexual means and sexual means. So reproduction can be seen only in living organisms. In non-living things, non-living, you can see weathering of rocks. That means a rock can be broken into several pieces, or a small hill can be broken into several pieces, or sand dunes can be broken into several parts. That you cannot say that is reproduction in case of non-living things. In case of non-living things, you cannot say it is reproduction. So, reproduction can be seen only in living things. Plants reproduces asexually, vegetatively, by fragmentation, budding, etc. Several higher organisms, plants and animals, reproduces sexually to multiply their population. And living organisms reproduce, non-living organisms do not reproduce. It is very clear. But some living organisms do not reproduce. For example, take mule. Take mule. And another one, worker bees. Sterile worker bees. Mule cannot reproduce. Sterile worker bees cannot reproduce. But whether they are living or non-living, living. Mule is a living organism, but it cannot reproduce. Understand? And sterile worker bees are living things, living organisms, but they do not reproduce. So, all the living organisms don't have the capacity of reproduction. All the living organisms don't have the capacity of reproduction. That is why reproduction, you cannot say it is the defining property of the living things. And come to metabolism. Metabolism constitutes anabolism plus catabolism. Anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism is a constructive process or synthetic process which is responsible for the growth of an organism. Catabolism is a destructive process. Catabolism is a destructive process. It degrades the organism. When anabolism exceeds catabolism, then you can find growth. You can find growth. Now see, examples for anabolism is photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is an example for anabolism. Respiration is an example for catabolism. In case of photosynthesis, sugars are synthesized. Sugars are synthesized from carbon dioxide, water in presence of sunlight. Whereas in catabolism, in respiration, these sugars are broken down. Carbohydrates are broken down to release the energy. So, anabolism and catabolism both occur in the living organism, constitutes metabolism. So, metabolism you can find only in living organisms. That is why it is a defining property. Now come to consciousness. What is this consciousness? Response to stimulus. Living organisms respond to stimulus. Whether it is a plant or animal, whatever it may be, they respond to stimulus. It is called consciousness. Non-living things do not respond to stimulus. And human beings have some special property, that is self-consciousness. Self-consciousness. So, consciousness you can find only in living things. That is why it is called a defining property. It is a defining property. And last one, interaction. Interaction is the property of living organisms. So there are three types of interactions: competition. These are main types of interactions: competition, predation, and mutualism. You know the definitions of these three words: competition, predation, and mutualism. These are the three main types of interactions existing among the living organisms. But you may ask here one question, whether there is any interaction between the non-living things. There may be interaction between the non-living things also. For example, you see this wall, you can see this wall is whitewashed and there is it is surface washed. So calcium carbonate is present on the wall, surface of the wall. So there is an interaction, that means binding. It is the binding interaction between the wall and the calcium carbonate coating. So there are several interactions, even though we cannot say particularly this type of interaction. But this competition, predation, and mutualism, these three types of interactions are existing in living organisms. So you cannot say exactly whether this is a defining property or non-defining property. So we cannot conclude that this is a defining property, correct, or particular defining property. We cannot conclude this. So the defining properties of living organisms are cellular organization, metabolism, and consciousness. Cellular organization, metabolism, and consciousness. These three are the defining properties. The remaining are non-defining properties of the living organisms. So this is all about living world and what is meant by living and how can we distinguish the living from non-living. Now let us see some more things about the living world, that is diversity of life. Diversity of life on earth. Let us know diversity of life on earth. This is also called or present on our earth. 5 to 30 million species are present on our earth. So far, hardly we have identified only 1.7 to 1.8 million species only we have identified so far. So, how many are remaining? 5 million species we have not yet identified, even 2 million also on this earth. So, there are so many species still to be identified are present on the earth. So, the diversity of life as we know now is not that much complex. If we identify all the remaining species also, we can understand how complex the diversity of life on earth. Now, how to understand this? Millions of species living on the earth, how can we identify? So, for understanding the diversity of life on earth, we need a specific identification or classification system. Now let us see identification and classification systems. What are the existing identification and classification studies? Identification and classification of organisms is called taxonomy. Identification and classification are collectively called taxonomy. Some taxonomical aids. Let us see some how to understand this taxonomy. What are the aids available to us to understand the taxonomy? Those are called taxonomical aids. Aids means which help in our studies. 1. Herbaria. 2. Botanical gardens. 3. Zoological parks. 4. Museums. 5. Keys. 5. Keys. Now see, taxonomical aid comes under 5 heads: herbaria, botanical gardens, zoological park, museum, and keys. Now let us see first what is herbaria. Herbaria is a plural noun. Herbarium is singular. See, these herbaria are dried, pressed plant specimens on the paper sheets. Dried, pressed plant specimens on the paper sheets for preservation and exhibition. Those are called herbaria. Generally, a herbarium sheet measures 11 inches in width and 11 inches and 16 inches in its length. See, this is one herbarium sheet, 11 by 16 inches. Generally, it can be in centimeters, 29 by 41 centimeters. 29 by 41 centimeters. This is a thick cardboard sheet. This is a thick cardboard sheet on which the collected plant specimen is preserved. Collected plant specimen is preserved on the cardboard sheet like this. First, it should be collected from the field. From the field. That means the field in which you are identifying the plant. Suppose you have identified one plant species in a particular field. You have to collect it and bring it to your study place or workplace. For example, you have collected many plant specimens in the field. You can bring them, keeping them in a vesiculum. Keeping them in a vesiculum. Vesiculum is a small metallic box. Vesiculum is a small metallic box in which you can preserve, you can place the collected plant specimens without disturbing them or without destroying them. So vesiculum is a protective case for the plant specimens. You can keep the plant specimens in the vesiculum and you can bring it to your workplace, whether it is your home or a college workplace or workroom. And after bringing the vesiculum into your workplace, you can open the vesiculum, you can take out the plant specimen and pressed it and dried thoroughly for 3 to 5 days in the blotting paper sheets. In the blotting paper sheets. Daily you have to change the blotting paper sheets because fungi may grow on the plant specimens. So to remove such things, to avoid such things, daily you have to remove the blotting paper sheets, keep afresh the blotting paper sheets, and so that after 5-6 days the plant specimen will be completely dried. You can use the antifungal agents also to stop the fungal growth on the plant specimens. And the dried plant specimen is placed on this herbarium sheet. This is called herbarium sheet. This herbarium sheet contains some information on the right hand lower corner of the sheet. Right hand lower corner of the sheet. See here, date of collection, place of collection, and collector's name, plant identification character, that is genus, species, etc. are written, so that if anybody comes in the later times, if he or she found this herbarium sheet, they can understand what is this plant, what is its genus, what is its species name, etc. They can understand. So several herbarium sheets you can prepare and you can preserve at your home also for studies, and you can collect the plants from your surroundings of your home or in your field, etc. So largest herbaria are present in the world. The world's largest herbaria is present in Kew Gardens, Royal Botanical Gardens, England. In our country, largest herbaria is present in Indian Botanical Gardens, Kolkata. Indian Botanical Gardens, Kolkata. There is the largest herbarium, and second largest herbarium is present in Dehradun, Indian Forest Research Institute, Dehradun. In South India, the big herbarium is present in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu Agricultural University, Coimbatore. Now, so anyway, these herbaria are highly useful in identifying the plants. Now come to botanical gardens. These botanical gardens, very large gardens which grows for the identification and study of plant kingdom. Several plant species are grown in botanical gardens. The largest botanical garden is Royal Botanical Garden in England. And in India, two botanical gardens, largest botanical gardens are there. One is Indian Botanical Garden, Kolkata, and that contains several species of animals, including plants also there. But anyway, we are giving importance to animals here in the Zoological Park, New Delhi, National Zoological Park, New Delhi. And museums. Museums are the centers for collection and preservation of the plant and animal species. Collection and preservation of the plant and animal specimens. Particularly we can speak as specimens, plant specimens and animal specimens, can be preserved in museums. And plant and animal specimens, if they are small, we can preserve them in formalin. Generally, 10% formaldehyde solution is called formalin. This is used as a preservative. In the formalin, we can preserve the specimens of either plants or animals. If they are small, we can preserve in glass jars. If they are large, we can stuff in the form of stuffed animals, stuffed form, or we can preserve them in the skeletal form. If they are small, we can preserve them in glass jars by using formalin as a preservative, or we can, if they are large, we can stuff them, or if they are very large, we can preserve their skeletons. So, museums consisting of these three types of forms of preserved specimens. So, we can study easily either the plant specimens or animal specimens in the museums. And the last one, keys. These keys are in the written form, in the book, in the form of a book. What is meant by key? A key is a set of alternate characters. Now we are talking about keys. A key is a set of alternate characters. A key is a set of alternate characters arranged in sequence by selection and elimination. For example, I am writing here one key. 1. Wings present. 2. Wings absent. This is one key. So here see, two contrasting characters are present here. By selection and elimination, we can identify the particular animal. How? This is only one key I have written. There are several contrasting characters to identify the organisms. But here only, for example, for your understanding, I have written only one key. This is called couplet. By selection and elimination, we can come to a conclusion. For example, see, wings present. If you catch a pigeon or if you catch a hen, wings present. So, you put a tick mark here. That means you have selected wings present. This statement you have selected. Understand? But wings absent. Hen has wings. In your hand, for example, a bird is present. So, wings are present. So, you have to eliminate this statement, you have to eliminate. So, key is a set of alternate characters selecting by selection and elimination of the particular character of a contrasting set. That contrasting set is called couplet. Each character in the couplet is called lead. This is lead 1. This is lead 2. So, a couplet of a key consists of a pair of contrasting characters which are called individually as leads. You have selected in this lead 1. Lead 2 is eliminated. Lead 2 is eliminated. In that way, you can understand, you can identify the given plant or animal by selection and elimination of the couplets of a key. So, key is an important source of identification of plants and animals. So, there are several keys. Class key, order key, genus key, species key. Like that, several keys are present. Based on, by going on through the keys, you can identify finally a plant or animal. And there are, besides keys, that means based on keys, besides keys, there are several books for identification and classification of the plants and animals. They are called flora. Manuals, monographs, flora, manuals, monographs, and catalogs. These are descriptive books. These are descriptive books in which the keys are present. In each of the books, these keys are present to identify the plants and animals. For example, take flora. Flora means all the plant species present in a particular area. All the plant species, that means, for example, studied by a person. All the plant species cannot be studied by one person. A person studied some plant species in the area. He has written a book that is called flora. So, flora is the plant species present in a area. And the manuals, these manuals discuss identification of the plant species in a particular area. Here flora will not help in identification. Manuals help in identification. Flora contains only the species names present in that particular area. For example, flora of Namakkal. You can say flora and fauna of Namakkal. That means the plants present in Namakkal area. Manual of Namakkal gives identification of the plant species in Namakkal area. Next, monographs. Monographs gives identification of a particular taxon. That means about only one taxon. It gives information. And catalogs are the plant species present in a particular area arranged in an alphabetical order or systematic order. This alphabetical or systematic order you cannot find in flora. Flora contains only the plant species and their names present in Namakkal region. But whereas in catalog, all the plant species described in Namakkal region are arranged in alphabetical order or in a systematic order. So, these flora, manuals, monographs and catalogs also help in identification of the plant or animal species of a particular area. This is with reference to plants only. In case of animals, it is called fauna. In case of animals. Now, anyway, for identification, herbaria, botanical gardens, zoological parks, museums, and keys are helping us for identification. But what is meant by classification? What is meant by classification? Classification and identification both run together. But for our study purpose, we are studying identification and classification separately. But both must run together to explain taxonomical evidence. So how to classify the plants? Before going to classify the plants, naming is very important. Naming of plants or animals, whatever they may be, naming is very important. That is called nomenclature. Nomenclature of the living organisms. Now, why we need the nomenclature? We have already our names. But why should we need a special nomenclature for plants and animals? They also need their own names. Because for identification, we have to identify them. That is why we must name them. Understand? If our parents do not put name on us, how can we be identified by the others? We cannot be identified. In the same way, we can, if we do not give name to the plant or animal, how can you identify? We cannot identify. So, naming the organisms is very important. There are several systems of nomenclature. And we have our local names. Those are called vernacular names. Vernacular means local. For example, let us see onion. You take onion. This onion is called ulli in Telugu. Ullagaddi in Kannada. Vengayan in Tamil. So, this onion can be called as ulli in Telugu, ullagaddi in Kannada, vengayan in Tamil. So, there are several local names. But one universal name, wherever you go, for example, if you go to Australia, if you say vengayan, nobody can understand. If you go to Gujarat and other states in our country, if we say ulli or ullagaddi, nobody can understand. So, there must be one name. That should be scientifically accepted name. Scientifically accepted name must be there for each and every living organism. Here, onion is a living organism. It has its universal name, Allium cepa. Allium cepa. This is a scientific name. If you go and say Allium cepa anywhere in the world, everybody can understand that it is onion. But if you say in our local language, nobody can understand except us. So, there should be a universally accepted nomenclature for the living organisms. For the living organisms. There are several nomenclature systems. Polynomial system, trinomial system, or binomial system. Among all those, binomial system of nomenclature proposed by Carolus von Linnaeus is most accepted system of nomenclature now all over the world. Now, what is this binomial nomenclature system? So, for naming the organisms, we have to follow some rules. We have to follow some rules. What are those rules? For naming the plant species, there is one organization, International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. This is for plants. In the same way, International Code for Zoological Nomenclature for animals. So, International Code for Nomenclature of Bacteria. This is for bacteria. In the same way, International Code for Viral Nomenclature. This is for virus. There are different organizations which works on nomenclature of organisms. International Code for Botanical Nomenclature for plants. International Code for Zoological Nomenclature for animals. International Code for Nomenclature of Bacteria for bacteria. International Code for Viral Nomenclature for viruses. So, we have to follow the rules and regulations framed by these organizations while naming the organisms. Now, let us see what is this binomial nomenclature system. Let us see the binomial nomenclature system with one example. Each and every organism on this earth must contain two names. First one generic name, second one specific name, species name. Mangifera indica. Now see here, first one, this is generic epithet. Generic epithet. The second one is called specific epithet or species epithet. Species epithet. This generic name or genus name must always be started with a capital letter. Must always be started with a capital letter. Whereas species name must be started with a small letter. Must be started with a small letter. And this should be in Latin. This should be in Latin. And if you write on a paper in your handwriting, it should be underlined. It should be underlined. If you print it on a paper, it should be in italics. This name should be in italics. And after species name, you can add the author also, who first found or who first described this plant species. For example, here I am writing LNN. This is for Linnaeus. This is for Linnaeus. This is called author citation. Author citation. Now you see, this mango plant has its scientific name Mangifera indica, first described by Linnaeus. So Mangifera first term denotes genus, and indica the second term denotes species. Last one, this is author citation Linnaeus. In the same way, we have to write all the names of the living organisms. In the living organisms. Now, tautonyms are not allowed in botany. Tautonyms are not allowed in botany. What is a tautonym? Both species and genus name same. For example, nausea. This nausea genus name same, species name same. But this is in zoology, tautonyms are allowed, whereas in botany, tautonyms are not allowed. And some plants may contain homonyms also. Some plants may contain homonyms. For example, I am writing here homonym Prunus dulci. Prunus dulci is the scientific name both for almond and plum. Almond and plum. Almond also has the scientific name Prunus dulci. Plum also has the scientific name Prunus dulci. This type of names are called homonyms. So, this is all about binomial system of nomenclature. Now, how to classify? How to classify the plants and animals? Let us see about plants only here in this class. There are some systems of classification systems. One is artificial system of classification. Second one, natural system of classification. Third one, phylogenetic system of classification. artificial system of classification is based on only external characters of the plant. External characters of the plant. That means number of leaves, position of leaves, and position of the flower, number of petals, number of sepals, etc. This is called artificial system of classification. Thoroughly linear system of classification is artificial system of classification. And Linnaeus also proposed artificial system of classification, which can be called as sexual system of classification. Sexual system. Why it is called sexual system? This is artificial system only. Why is it called sexual system? He classified the plants based on the number and the position of stamens and carpels. Based on the number and the position of stamens and carpels. That is why Linnaeus artificial system of classification is also called sexual system of classification. And the second one, natural system of classification. This is based on natural characters. That is cellular organization. That means cellular organization, anatomical features, and phytochemical features, anatomical features, cellular features, etc. are also taken. This is all comprises internal characters of the plant. Internal characters of the plant. Whereas artificial system does not include internal characters. It is purely based on external characters. Whereas this natural system based on internal characters of the plants also besides external characters. For example, Bentham and Hooker's system. Bentham and Hooker's system is natural system of classification. And the third one is phylogenetic system of classification. It mostly depends on evolutionary trends. Evolutionary trends. Evolutionary trends observed in the plant kingdom is the basis of phylogenetic system of classification. Exactly, Engler and Prandtl system, Engler and Prandtl system, and Eichler system. Eichler system of classification. These two are the examples for phylogenetic system of classification. So there are three systems of classification, mainly artificial system, natural system, and phylogenetic systems of classification. Now in India, we are following natural system of classification. Out of it, we are following Bentham and Hooker system of classification. In India, we are following. Now, what is meant by taxonomical hierarchy? What is meant by taxonomical hierarchy? Taxonomical hierarchy. That means after classification, we have to arrange it in one order. One systematic way, we have to arrange it. That systematic arrangement in a systematic order is called hierarchy. It is called taxonomical hierarchy. It starts with kingdom. It starts with kingdom. 5 minutes. Only 5. Kingdom. And then division. Division or phylum in case of animals. Division or phylum in case of animals. Next, class. Next, order. Next, family. Next, genus. Next, species. This is a taxonomical hierarchy. Taxonomical hierarchy. For example, you take plant kingdom. Plant kingdom. In it, in case of animals, you have to place them under phylum. In case of plants, you have to place them under division. These divisions: algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. Next, class. If you take an angiospermic plant, class, whether it is a monocot or dicot. Whether it is a monocot or dicot. And after class, you have to place the plant in order. For example, you can take Polemoniales order. Polemoniales order, because in the families, you are studying Solanaceae family. Solanaceae family comes under Polemoniales order. That's why I am telling Polemoniales order. This Polemoniales order includes Convolvulaceae also besides Solanaceae. That means Solanaceae and Convolvulaceae, both families comes under order Polemoniales. And Solanaceae, under family Solanaceae, consisting of several species: Solanum tuberosum for potato, Solanum melangina for brinjal, and Solanum nigrum for another species of Solanaceae plant. So, in which a plant can be successfully arranged for identification. Okay, thank you very much. Let us stop here.